Have you ever wondered why someone could be so powerfully drawn to you, so irresistibly captivated? It's not just a passing glance, but a strange, almost inexplicable pull, as if you're carrying a secret code that only a few people can recognize. Maybe you felt it before. Someone enters your life, and within 5 minutes, there's an invisible current flowing between you. They hold your gaze a little longer than normal. Their smile seems brighter when it turns your way. And in that moment, you ask yourself, why me? Why are they so drawn to me? People often say it's about looks, that a beautiful face, a confident manner, or a clever word is enough to make someone fall. But if you pay close attention, there are times when you're not even trying, not dressed to impress, maybe even feeling plain. And yet, someone looks at you like you're everything they've been waiting for. So what else could be happening beneath the surface? Love at first sight feels like lightning. It strikes suddenly, makes your heart race, blurs everything else around you. People call it being struck. But if you look closer, you'll see that no lightning is truly random. Behind every seemingly explosive moment is a quiet structure that's been forming for a long time, like a seed waiting for the right soil and sunlight to sprout. Deep down, the soul is never a blank page. It's a room filled with images, memories, desires, and wounds that have never been touched. And all of it carries a magnetic pull. Imagine a woman raised in a home where she was constantly told to be careful, to stay quiet, to never draw attention. She learned to shrink herself, to stay hidden, to keep her true heart unseen. Then, one day, she meets a man who is the complete opposite. Loud, free, unafraid of being noticed. He doesn't know that just by existing, he has awakened something long asleep in her soul. She feels drawn to him, so intensely it confuses her. In that moment, she might think she's in love, with his humor, his freedom, his carefree nature. But the truth is, she sees in him the dream she buried long ago. He is a mirror, reflecting the life she never dared to live. And you too. Sometimes, people love you not for the version of yourself you're showing, but because they recognize in you something they long for, something they denied, or something their unconscious has been preparing for a long time. It might sound strange, but think back to your own memories. Have you ever met someone and in just a glance, felt like you've known them forever? You couldn't explain it, but something about them made you feel safe, or made your heart tremble dangerously. That wasn't chance. That was your unconscious at work, quietly pulling you toward a missing piece of yourself. There's a truth few dare to admit. We often don't love others for who they truly are. We love them for how they make us feel. We love the image they awaken in us. Maybe it's an unfulfilled dream, a fear we need to face, a part of ourselves we've never acknowledged. Think about it. How many times have you loved someone fiercely, only to look back years later and wonder, what was I so drawn to? They weren't even that special, but at the time, they were everything. Not because they were perfect, but because they stirred in you what you needed most in order to grow. Carl Jung once said, "We are not attracted to people by accident. We are pulled by the unconscious, like the moon pulls the tides." That line paints a picture in my mind. You stand by the sea, watching the waves crash. It seems like water rushing to meet the sand, but really the waves are answering a silent call from the distant moon. Love is the same. That moment when you meet someone and your heart lights up is the result of an invisible force that's been quietly forming within you. In those early moments of love, it often feels like magic is happening. The other person becomes a mystery, a puzzle you're desperate to solve. But underneath that magic is a simple truth. The unconscious has found a mirror, and that is both beautiful and dangerous. Beautiful because it opens a door, a chance to see yourself more clearly. Dangerous because if you're not careful, you'll believe that person is everything you're missing, and you'll cling to them with the illusion that they will complete you. I remember an old friend. He once told me he fell for a girl because she was the freedom he never dared to have. But over time, their differences wore him down. What he needed wasn't a girl to give him freedom, but the courage to find freedom within himself. See, the question, "Why do they love me?" is often a mirror reflecting, "Why do I love them?" And both questions lead to the same place, the unconscious. So what really happens when someone suddenly falls madly in love with you? They may say it's because you're smart, gentle, magnetic, but the truth runs deeper. You may be the embodiment of something they deeply crave. You may be the missing piece they've searched for, or maybe, with just one glance, You've awakened an image in their soul that had been sleeping for years and now burns like fire in the dark. And the question remains, if love truly comes from the unconscious, what are those reasons exactly? Why would someone cross oceans for you, while another wouldn't take a step? In the next chapters, we'll explore the two deepest reasons why someone might fall for you so completely. And maybe, once you understand them, you'll begin to see your past loves through a whole new lens. Because sometimes, people don't love you for the life you're living, but for the hidden reflection of themselves they find in you. We often think love begins with a glance, a smile, or an unexpected conversation. But if you listen more closely, you'll realize that every attraction carries with it an old story silently written inside us long ago. It is not just a fleeting moment of emotion. It is a bell ringing deep within, awakened by layers of memory and hidden fragments buried in the unconscious. Try to remember the first time you felt someone was special. No need for words, no need for touch, just a fleeting moment, and you knew they were different. You may call it intuition, but in truth, it is a quiet architecture built from the past, from childhood, from emotional pieces never fully healed. Every person you meet in life does not come by chance. They arrive because a part of you is ready to meet yourself through them. I once knew a man who appeared calm and almost overly cautious in everything he did. He thought carefully before speaking, before acting, afraid of making mistakes, afraid of being judged. Then one day, a woman entered his life. She laughed loudly, spoke quickly, and had no fear of showing her emotions. To many, she seemed impulsive, but to him, she was radiant, like fire. He was drawn to her like a moth to light. What he loved was not just her, but the freedom within himself that had been held back for so long. In her, he saw the part of himself he had never dared to show. That is how the unconscious works. It collects what has been forgotten, what has been suppressed, and one day, it lets us encounter those things in the form of another human being. In that moment, we think we are in love with them, but really, we are meeting ourselves in another form. If you pay attention, encounters like these often carry a strange feeling. You may have just met them, yet it feels as though you've known them forever. They are not just flesh and blood. They are a symbol, a signal arriving at the exact moment to awaken something inside you. Many call this destiny, but that destiny does not come from outside. It comes from the secret architecture of your soul. Another time, I spoke with a woman who had gone through a controlling marriage. She told me that when she met a gentleman, soft-spoken and never raising his voice, she fell in love instantly. I felt safe, like I had finally found a harbor, she said. But what she felt did not only come from that man. It came from her deep longing for a place without fear. He was simply a mirror reflecting that hidden desire. Examples like these show us that love is not always the meeting of two separate individuals. It is often the meeting between a real person out there and an unconscious part within us waiting to be acknowledged. Once, I heard a line I've never forgotten. Love is the unconscious meeting itself in disguise. When we fall in love, the unconscious minds of two people meet, recognize one another, and take on the form of emotion to enter daily life. That's why some love stories are impossible to walk away from. They touch the deepest part of our souls that we never even knew existed. But this is also why love can be a double-edged sword. When we fall for the image reflected back to us by someone else, we can forget that they are a real human being with flaws and limits. And when the curtain of magic falls, we are stunned to realize that the other person is not the dazzling mirror we imagined. That moment is often called heartbreak. But it is also an opportunity, a chance to look inward and realize that what we were truly searching for was never outside of us, but within. Here's something interesting. We often believe we choose who we love. But if we're honest, we'll see that there are people we never actually chose. They entered our lives, and our hearts had already decided long before our minds caught up. That feeling is like being destined to meet them. Not by accident, not by coincidence, but by a map drawn by your unconscious, guiding you to the right moment. When I think about this, I see the image of old clocks ticking quietly in a dark room, each one ticking on its own path, silently turning its hands. Then suddenly, there is a single moment when all the little hands and big hands align, creating a perfect point of meeting. Love is like that. Two unconscious clocks ticking to their own rhythms, and one day they stop at the same moment. We call it attraction, but in truth, It is a silent meeting between two souls. So what truly makes someone unable to resist you? It's not just your appearance or a few standout traits. It's because you unknowingly stepped into a role their unconscious had already written. You are like a character in a play their soul has been quietly directing. And when the curtain rises, you're standing there, unaware that you have just stepped into the role they've been waiting for all along. This leads us to the first and deepest reason why someone might fall deeply in love with you. Because you are the embodiment of what they are missing, the part they've forgotten in their own journey. And when they see you, they don't just see a person, they see a possibility. A version of themselves they have never lived fully. Sometimes, people don't love you for who you are. They love you because you are the mirror reflecting the missing piece within them. And that is the first reason they can't stop loving you. There is something strange about love that few dare to admit. Sometimes, people don't love you for who you truly are. They love you because you are the embodiment of something missing within themselves. You are like a puzzle piece they could never find inside. And when you appear, they believe they've finally become whole. Imagine a rational man who lives by numbers, plans, and control. He is successful, admired for his logic and discipline. Yet in the quiet hours of the night, when he is alone with silence, he feels a vague emptiness. He doesn't know how to cry, doesn't allow himself to dream, and certainly doesn't know how to let go. Then one day, he meets a woman who is completely different. She writes poetry, cries freely at movies, and can sit for hours just watching the clouds drift by. He is drawn to her like a wanderer in the desert, stumbling upon water. He thinks he loves her, but the truth is, he's in love with the emotional part of himself he has long suppressed, and it doesn't just happen in one direction. That woman, living in a whirlwind of feelings, finds peace in his presence. His certainty, his steadiness, his logic act like an anchor that keeps her from drifting too far. These two seemingly opposite people are drawn to each other because of what they lack within themselves. We call this the unconscious complement. An introvert is often drawn to an extrovert. Someone who craves order can't resist the chaos of another. A dreamer finds themselves with a realist, and a stubborn soul is softened by someone gentle, not because they want a copy of themselves, but because the opposite represents a part of life they've never lived. And love becomes the bridge between two shores of the soul. I remember a friend once confessed, "I love her because she lives the way I never dared to. She says what I hold back, does what I fear, and walks into places I only watch from a distance." Hearing that, I suddenly understood that sometimes we fall in love because someone else is living out the part of us that's never had the chance to breathe. But this also hides a dangerous trap. When you become the embodiment of what someone else lacks, you're not just a lover, you become a savior. They start to lean on you as if they can't live without you. They idolize you, see you as the answer to all their longings. And in that moment, you stop being a real person and become a mirror for their reflection. Here's where the danger lies. Once they realize you are human too, that you get tired, make mistakes, and have your own weaknesses, the illusion begins to crumble. They no longer see the perfection they saw at the beginning. And admiration can quickly turn into disappointment, even resentment, because they never truly loved you. They loved the version of themselves they saw in you. Another friend of mine went through this. He was madly in love with a girl who was spontaneous and impulsive. To him, she was the wind of freedom he had been chasing his whole life. But over time, faced with her unpredictability and lack of responsibility, he began to feel exhausted. He realized he didn't love her for who she was. He loved the dream of freedom she represented. And when that dream clashed with reality, the burning love quickly turned into a heavy burden. This is the fragility of love, built on lack. At first, it burns bright because each person sees in the other what they are missing. But that light can quickly fade when the illusion is no longer strong enough to hide the truth. A love based on unconscious compensation without awareness often cannot go the distance. Still, this is not a tragedy. These experiences are mirrors for growth. When someone loves you because you represent what they lack, and later feels let down, that is the moment the unconscious delivers a lesson. They are forced to look inward and realize that what they admired in you can also be nurtured within themselves. A girl once told me that after her breakup, she realized, "He didn't actually give me peace. I had to learn to create that peace within myself. He only showed me that it was something I needed." And in that moment, I thought, yes, he wasn't the solution. He was the mirror pointing the way. When you understand this, You stop blaming love for falling apart. Instead, you feel grateful. Because it is through love that you uncover the part of yourself you had forgotten. The true purpose of love is not to find someone who completes you, but to help you see yourself more fully. If you pay attention, you'll notice this pattern repeats throughout your relationships. How many times have you been drawn to the same type of person? How many times did you think this time would be different, only to find yourself in the same story again? It's not a coincidence. It's your unconscious bringing you back to the lesson you haven't finished learning. It keeps sending you people who carry the very qualities you lack, until you realize that you are the one who must cultivate them. Maybe it's the tenderness you've avoided, the decisiveness you've run from, or the creativity you've forgotten. The other person is just a character your unconscious cast for the role. And when the role is over, you are the one who must carry the story forward. So the first reason someone might fall deeply and irresistibly in love with you is because you are the mirror of what they're missing. In you, they see courage, freedom, creativity, or softness they have never dared to live. They love you, but on a deeper level, they are loving their own untapped potential. But it doesn't stop there. Because beyond representing what they lack, there is an even more powerful reason. You might match exactly with the archetypal image their unconscious has carried since childhood. And when that happens, the attraction becomes nearly impossible to resist. If the first reason someone falls in love with you is because you represent a missing part of themselves, then the second reason is even deeper and more mysterious. It doesn't come from unconscious compensation, or simply from contrasting personalities, but from an ancient image that lives within every soul, the archetype. Carl Jung once said that within every man's psyche lives an unconscious image of the feminine, called the Anima. Likewise, in every woman, there exists an unconscious image of the masculine, called the Animus. These images are not chosen by you, nor are they imposed by society. They are shaped from a very early age, through your relationship with your parents, cultural symbols, myths, and the collective unconscious passed down through generations. Think back to the first time you saw a movie, read a fairy tale, or heard a song in your childhood. Maybe it was the gentle princess, the brave knight, or the mysterious woman who emerged from a dreamlike setting. That image etched itself into your subconscious and, over time, became a blueprint. And when you grow up and meet someone in real life who happens to match that blueprint, your heart almost has no choice but to feel something. I remember a friend once shared that he fell in love with a girl the very first moment he saw her. I can't explain why, he said, but when she walked in, it felt like I had been waiting for her my whole life. He didn't realize that he was face to face with his own anima, the feminine image his soul had carried since childhood. That girl may not have been perfect, but a simple gesture, a glance, or the tone of her voice was enough to awaken something deep inside him. The same thing happens with women. A woman may be drawn to a man, not because he is truly exceptional, but because he reflects the qualities of her inner animus, the masculine image shaped by her early experiences with her father, her brother, or heroic male figures she once admired. When that animus is awakened, she feels an uncanny sense of familiarity, a magnetic pull, almost beyond her control. You see, this is no longer just about opposites attracting. This is the unconscious holding a script, a sacred pattern, and when it finds someone who fits, the heart instantly believes it has found destiny. You may have only just met them, yet it feels like you've known them forever. You talk for just a few minutes, but your heart whispers, "This is the one." Yet this magical pull carries within it a danger, because you're not really seeing the other person. You're seeing a projection of your inner image cast onto them. You think you're falling in love with a real flesh and blood human being. But in truth, you are in love with a symbol, an archetype you've been carrying. Imagine watching an old film. A character moves you to tears, feels like your soulmate. But when the movie ends, you realize it was only a performance. Love works the same way. When your anima or animus finds someone to play the role in real life, it feels just like destiny. But in the end, it's a script from your unconscious being projected onto the screen of reality. I once witnessed a story like this. A very intelligent and rational friend of mine fell deeply for a man with an artist's spirit. To her, he embodied everything she had ever dreamed of: freedom, creativity, mystery, rebellion. She believed he was the man of her destiny. But after some time, as everyday life settled in, she began to see his irresponsibility, his gaps, the chaos that once charmed her. The glowing image of her animus shattered, revealing a very ordinary man, and she was heartbroken, not because he had changed, but because her illusion could no longer hold. This is the common tragedy of love, based on archetypes. When you fall in love with an image rather than a person, that love rarely lasts. But Jung reminded us, the collapse of an illusion is not a failure. It is a necessary step on the journey of growth. In truth, having your anima or animus awakened is not a bad thing. It offers you a chance to look inward. When you feel intensely drawn to someone, it is a signal that there is a part of you that has been forgotten. Maybe it is tenderness, strength, creativity, or freedom that you now need to cultivate within yourself. That person is just the mirror, the trigger that brings your inner need into focus. I once heard someone say, when you fall in love, you are falling into yourself. Every time we love, we are in fact diving deeper into who we are. Because love is not just the meeting of two individuals, but a reunion of long-sleeping inner images, the archetypes within us. So, the second reason someone might fall for you so deeply they cannot resist is because you resemble the archetypal image they have carried in their heart since childhood. You match their anima or animus, and when that happens, they don't just feel attracted, they feel chosen, as if the universe itself designed your meeting. But what happens when love built on unconscious images begins to collide with reality? When the real you no longer resembles the archetype in their mind, that is when the illusion begins to break, and love enters its most dangerous stage. Love begins like a dream. In the early days, everything shines as brightly as the morning sun. Every glance glows. Every word holds special meaning. You believe you've found the one, that all the missing pieces have finally come together. But slowly, the shadow of reality begins to creep in. And when it casts its light, the sparkling image begins to shatter, revealing a truth that is not always easy to accept. This is the most common tragedy in love, the collapse of the illusion. Because in the beginning, you don't truly see the other person. You see a mirror, a character from a script your unconscious has carried all along. But no one can live in a role forever. One day, the real person will show up, and that's when the illusion begins to crack. Imagine a man who falls in love with a woman because she makes him feel free, spontaneous, alive. But over time, that same spontaneity becomes a burden. Her impulsive decisions make him anxious. Her carefree nature exhausts him. The woman he loved hasn't changed. Only the image in his eyes has collapsed. Admiration turns into disappointment. Or a woman who falls for a man because he seems strong, decisive, grounded, just like the animus she's carried within her. But once they live together, that decisiveness sometimes becomes rigidity. That strength turns into a lack of sensitivity. The man she once saw as her knight in shining armor becomes a regular person, complete with flaws and limits. This is the most dangerous moment in love, when the curtain falls and the real person is revealed. Many call it the disillusionment phase. And often, disillusionment comes with pain, because it's not just the person you lose. It's the beautiful illusion you once clung to as destiny. I remember a friend who said after a breakup, "I'm not hurting because I lost him. I'm hurting because I lost the feeling that I had found my perfect match." You see, what's hard to let go of isn't just the person. It's the dream we once believed in so deeply. And yet, if you look deeper, you'll see that this collapse isn't necessarily a tragedy. It's like a sunset, stunning in its beauty, yet darkness must come before the next dawn. The breaking of the illusion is the moment we begin to truly see both the other person and ourselves. Because love based on projection and archetypes is like standing before a painting. At first, we think the painting is a door, and if we walk through it, we'll enter paradise. But as we move closer, we realize it's just layers of color on a wall. That sense of disappointment is real, but it also opens a question. Are we ready to love the real person behind the paint? Or did we only love the image in our mind? A couple I once knew went through this very journey. In the beginning, they were like two perfect puzzle pieces. He saw in her the softness he lacked. She saw in him the strength she longed for. But 2 years in, the relationship became tense. She began to feel his strength as harshness, while he saw her softness as dependency. They argued more, disappointed more, until one day, they both admitted, "We never really loved each other's true selves, only the image we wanted to see." That story may sound sad, but it carries an important truth. Love cannot live forever. on the foundation of illusion. It has to move through the collapse to become real. Only when the picture breaks apart can we ask ourselves the real question. Do I have the courage to love this person in all their complexity? Maybe you felt this too. At first, you thought you'd found your perfect match. But over time, differences emerged. You felt disappointed, maybe heartbroken, even angry. But look again. That moment of disillusionment taught you something vital. It forced you to face the truth that no one can live up to the idealized version you created. It reminded you that real love begins the moment the illusion ends. In the darkness of heartbreak, there is still a glimmer of light, because the collapse is also a doorway to growth. It reminds you that the other person is not your savior, not a perfect dream, but simply a fellow human being walking the same road. Like you, they have shadows, wounds, and missing pieces. And if you can see that, and still choose to stay, that is when love truly begins. A writer once said, "We don't really fall in love with people. We fall in love with the idea of them. And when that idea collapses, only then do we meet the real person." Maybe the collapse of the illusion isn't the end. Maybe it's an invitation to step out of the dream world and into the real one, where love is no longer shimmering fantasy, but a grounded companionship between two imperfect souls. And if you're brave enough to walk through this dangerous territory, you'll discover something profound. Love after illusion may be less dazzling, but it is far more enduring. Because it no longer depends on images, it is rooted in truth. And Jung never saw the collapse of love as failure. He believed that the very relationships that hurt us most are the ones with the greatest potential for growth. Because love, more than joy, is one of the most powerful tools for transforming the soul. When we talk about love, most of us think of sweetness, of happy moments when two people are in harmony. But to Jung, love is something else entirely. It is the most powerful tool for transforming the soul. He believed that no meeting in love is ever random, and no pain in love is ever meaningless. Every relationship, whether brief or lasting, peaceful or chaotic, plays a role in our journey of growth. Think about the people you've loved. Some made you feel safe. Some made you feel insecure. Some sparked your creativity. Others forced you to confront your deepest wounds. And whether you wanted them to or not, each one left a mark. Each one touched a part of your soul. I remember a close friend once told me that her first love didn't last more than a year, but it completely changed how she saw herself. She had always been shy, afraid of rejection, always hiding her emotions. But when she fell in love, she expressed parts of herself she had never dared to show. She said things she'd never dared to say. And when that relationship ended, instead of returning to her old self, she realized she had changed forever. She had learned to be more authentic, to show her feelings, and most importantly, to love herself. That's how love works. It doesn't just bring joy. It opens the door to face yourself. The other person becomes a mirror, reflecting back what you need to see. Sometimes it's your hidden potential. Sometimes it's an old wound. But whatever it is, it demands transformation. Imagine standing in a room full of mirrors. Each mirror reflects a different side of you. One shows your smile, one reveals your fears. Another reflects a part of you that you've never dared to acknowledge. The people you love are those mirrors. Each person enters your life to show you something specific. One may reveal your strength. Another, your vulnerability. One teaches you how to love. Another, how to let go. And none of them appear by accident. In fact, the most painful relationships are often the greatest teachers. Because when your heart breaks, your unconscious has done something important. It has brought to light what you needed to learn. A girl once told me, "If I hadn't loved and been betrayed, I would never have realized how much I was chasing external validation instead of learning to accept myself." You see, love is not just the story of two people. It is a journey of awakening. Jung called this process individuation, the path to becoming whole. And love, with all its highs and heartbreaks, is one of the strongest catalysts for that path. Every person you love, in some way, is helping you move closer to your most complete self. I once heard a line that stayed with me. Some people come into your life as blessings. Others come as lessons. Some people show up to bring you joy. Others show up to teach you something hard. But both are equally important. No one comes by mistake. No one is extra. Think about it. Without the love stories of your past, would you be who you are today? Probably not. The tears you've shed, the disappointments that once felt unbearable, They've all helped shape the strength and wisdom in you now. I once met a middle-aged man who told me he had gone through 3 failed marriages. It sounded painful, but he smiled as he spoke. Each woman I loved taught me something I needed to learn, he said. The first taught me responsibility. The second, freedom. The third, patience. And because of them, I finally learned how to love myself. Hearing that, I understood that sometimes love doesn't come to stay forever. It comes to open a door inside us. When you look at love this way, everything feels lighter. You stop seeing heartbreak as loss. You see it as part of the journey. You stop blaming those from your past for the pain, because you realize that pain led you to where you needed to be. Love, in a way, is the greatest mirror of the soul. It forces you to face both your light and your shadows. It helps you see the parts of yourself that have never been lived. And most of all, it brings you closer to wholeness. And sometimes, those love stories don't come by chance. They come right on time, as if some invisible hand arranged it just to wake you up. Jung called these moments synchronicity, meaningful coincidences. And that is the hidden truth behind what we often call destiny. Have you ever met a stranger, and in that very first moment, felt as if you were meant to meet them? Not by chance, but by a meaningful coincidence that made you pause and think, there has to be a reason. Jung called such experiences synchronicity, meaningful coincidences. These are not random events, but moments that arrive precisely when your soul is ready, reflecting a deep inner need. In other words, when your spirit is prepared for transformation, the universe sends a person or a situation to awaken that change. I remember a conversation with a young woman who shared that during one of the loneliest phases of her life, having just lost her job and ended a relationship, she met a man on a night train. They sat next to each other, started talking, and within hours, she felt as if she had known him forever. Strangely enough, nothing continued between them after that journey. But in just a few short days, he had said things, shared thoughts, that helped her realize what she truly wanted in life. He came and went like the wind, she said. But because of him, I woke up. That is synchronicity, a fleeting encounter that carries the weight of a full chapter. The other person doesn't need to stay. They just need to arrive at the right time to awaken a part of you. And once their role is complete, they move on. You may have experienced something like this too. Meeting someone at a workshop, a cafe, or even just a glance on the street, and yet that encounter lingers in your mind for days. Why did they show up at that exact moment? Not earlier, not later. And why did a single gesture or sentence from them strike you so deeply? The answer is this: your soul was ready. When the inner world longs for change, the unconscious finds a way to draw in a matching event. Jung describes synchronicity as the meeting point between the inner world and the outer world. When those two currents align, something happens, and we call it destiny. I once knew a man who lived his whole life in stability, but also in quiet boredom. His job was steady, his life safe, but something inside him always felt hollow. Then one day, during a business trip, he met a woman. They talked all night, sharing dreams and desires he had never dared to speak aloud. After that one encounter, he decided to change everything, switched careers, pursued an old passion, lived differently. The woman didn't stay, but her presence was like a spark that lit up a dark room inside him. The point is, if that meeting had happened earlier, he might not have been ready to change. If it had happened later, he might have become too numb to listen. It happened at the perfect moment, when his soul was just longing and just hurting enough to be ready for transformation. That's synchronicity. One of the most beautiful things about synchronicity is that it makes life feel less like a string of random events and more like a tapestry woven with meaning. Every person, every encounter is a thread in that tapestry. And love, more than anything else, is often where those threads intersect most clearly. But we must also remember, not every destined meeting brings happiness. Some people arrive only to break us, and yet, that very heartbreak becomes the catalyst for change. A friend once told me that the relationship that hurt her most turned out to be her greatest gift. He came at just the right time to shatter the illusions I had been clinging to for too long, she said. Without that pain, I would never have found myself. It sounds paradoxical, but it's true. Some encounters are meant to heal, others are meant to break, and both are equally important. Think about your own life. How many people have shown up at just the right time to open a new chapter? Maybe a brief romance, a new friend, or even a stranger on the street. But when you look back, if it hadn't been for them, you wouldn't be walking the path you're on today. Jung believed that synchronicity is more than coincidence. It is a sign that your unconscious is aligned and moving in the right direction. When a meeting stirs something deep within you, it's a signal that change has already begun inside, and life is now reflecting that shift. So instead of just asking, "Why did this person come into my life?" you might ask yourself, "What part of me is being awakened right now?" Because the real answer doesn't lie in them. It lies in you. And in the end, all of this leads to one profound truth. Love, whether it arrives through joy or pain, is always a journey back to yourself. No one truly loves you for who you are. They love you for what you awaken in them. And the same is true in reverse. You love them for the part of yourself they illuminate. When we look back on the entire journey of love, from the initial spark of attraction to the shimmering illusions, the heartbreak, the pain, and ultimately, the transformation, we come to a simple yet powerful truth. Love has never been just a story about two people. At its deepest level, love is always a conversation between you and yourself. You might think you love someone because they are intelligent, gentle, strong, or captivating. But if you're honest, you'll realize the true reason isn't really about them. You love because they awaken something within you. Sometimes it's a part of you that's been missing. Sometimes it's an archetypal image you've carried since childhood. And every time that part is awakened, it feels like electricity surging through your heart, like a new life being born. That is the true power of love. But love doesn't stop at attraction. It challenges you. It forces you to face your own shadows. It makes you taste disillusionment, pain, and disappointment. And in those moments, you grow. Because no light shines brighter than the light you find after walking through the dark. Think about the loves of your past. Some brought you joy. Others left you with scars. But without them, you wouldn't be who you are today. The one who made you happy showed you that you are worthy of being loved. The one who hurt you forced you to learn how to love yourself. Each person was a chapter, and together, they've written your whole story. A friend once told me that after many breakups, she came to a truth. I've never truly loved anyone. I only loved the part of myself I saw in them. It may sound bitter, but it's one of the most liberating realizations. Because when you understand that love is a mirror, you stop searching for the perfect person out there and start turning inward. This doesn't mean love isn't real. In fact, it makes love more real. Because instead of building it on illusions, you build it on truth. You no longer expect the other person to fill your empty spaces. Instead, you see them as a whole being, with both light and darkness, and you choose to love both. At that point, love is no longer dependence. It becomes companionship. No longer a game of unconscious projections, but a meeting between two awakened souls. And love like that, though quieter than the dazzling beginnings, has a depth and resilience that nothing can replace. There's a quote I love. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Every love encounter holds the power to transform. And whether that love lasts or ends, you are never the same person afterward. So when you ask, why do they love me? The answer isn't just about you. It's about their journey too. They love you because you illuminated something inside them. You mirrored something they've carried within. And the same is true for you. Two souls don't meet to complete each other. They meet to awaken each other. If love teaches us one thing above all else, it's this. No one out there can make us whole. Every encounter, every relationship is just a doorway that leads us back to ourselves. And when we have the courage to walk through, we discover that the deepest, most lasting love is the love we have for ourselves, for our whole selves, light and shadow alike. Maybe you are in love now, or you've loved before, or maybe you're hurting after a breakup. Wherever you are on the path, remember, love is never wasted. Every hug, every smile, every tear has meaning. All of it has been guiding you closer to who you truly are. And next time someone loves you, or you find yourself loving someone, ask, what part of my soul is awakening right now? Because that is the true gift of love. Not just connection with another, but reconnection with yourself. Love is not just the story of finding the right person. It is the journey of return. Return to wholeness. Return to your deepest essence. Return to the person you've always been. And sometimes, All it takes is one encounter, one touch, one glance to open that door. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If this message touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey we take together. Your support means the world to me.